Last week was a drag. I had to watch Trump dancing on stage for 45 minutes. I definitely don't need to wash my eyes out with holy water. But if anyone has any.
Know you want the best for me, it's true. But still I can't pretend I'm just like you. 'Cause there's a way that I'm different. You got to see the truth about me.
Live from the villages. I hope this is my face. It's my first TikTok. I have no clue what I'm doing, but we are working hard here. Here we go, everybody. 1, 2, 3. 22 days to go.
22 days to go. We won't go back. She has us on track. 22 days to go.
I love those ladies, but it's actually only 14 days to go. I wish I had a granny village. Politiculies, do you have a village who you're working with to learn more about the propositions and get the word out? How about you, sisters?
I mean, a big part of my village is sitting right here, maybe a girl. She's been a constant part of my pre-election process for the last 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, and honestly, same with you. It's funny because I always think, oh, I've got to talk to Leona and see what she thinks about this candidate or this proposition. I mean, because let's be frank, there's so much on the ballot. It's not just about who are you voting for president. It's everything else.
Yeah.
Not even just the candidates, but the measures and the propositions.
Yeah. What about you two?
Well, I love to have like little voting parties where we all bring our ballots, like our mail-in ballots, and we just talk about like, who are you voting for? Why are you voting for them? Like, why do you think that? And I love it because I get to have like my ballotpedia, I got to have all my notes with me, and sometimes it's hard like when you're voting in person and not knowing, oh, who's this? I can't really look up this person right now. So I love doing that maybe like a week or two before the election.
I love that.
And I usually just speak with my husband. He's very involved in the city. So he is who I go to for all of my news and who I should be leaning towards. I trust his opinion.
Yeah.
This past weekend, I actually sat down with my parents and like helped them go through the
yes.
ballot and everything. That's become part of my ritual as well. And we have discussions. We don't always see eye to eye on everything political, but even that is like super helpful for my like voting process, I feel like.
Yeah, I think having those conversations in general, just like with your loved ones, it can also help you. With,
Yeah.
like, if you're feeling on the fence, or if you think you know more about an issue, but it's actually
don't.
not. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have all
Totally.
of like the know-how in terms of like what's going on.
But
Yeah.
definitely from like working on local campaigns, I feel like I've developed a really good circle of people who I can turn to and be like,
Yeah.
what's your view on this? What's your view on this? Like, I find it really helpful. You build a community that way. Also through drag, I feel like we probably all
We're
have
all
that
political.
experience.
And
Yeah.
We're always
Totally.
talking about it in the backstage, like even just back there, even though.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
Even for me, like as an elected official and as a candidate, I feel a little obligated to be able to provide others with resources.
Yeah.
And every single election season, I get a ton of messages on Instagram and social media asking me, hey, is there a voter guide that you recommend? Or what do you think about this candidate or this proposition? I'm just really grateful that there are so many really great progressive voter guides out there. I know that we had talked about this recently, you know,
Yes.
the Knock LA,
Knock
Chris
LA,
Rell.
Chris Rell, I think Move LA Left is the name of his voter guide. I find it tremendously helpful. Do y'all have any that you lean towards?
I use
I use Knock LA.
and the Los Angeles LGBT Center.
Oh,
Yes,
I didn't know
yes.
they had one.
Yeah,
That's
they
good
have
to
a
know.
voters guide too.
And I think, you know, what's interesting about candidate guides, though, is that, you know, we still all have our individual opinions. And some of the candidates, some of the measures and propositions, they are even still, you get mixed reviews from various different parties. Like, I've had 2 different, you know, progressive sources that I trust saying, you know, vote yes on this candidate, vote no on this candidate. And so it really does come down to doing your own research.
Of
I know
course.
that's become such a cliche phrase, but we really should be doing our own research because we all have our individual views and opinions and the way that we want to see the world operate.
Being that you're our resident politician, do you feel like, I know you said, you know, you feel obligated, but do you feel like there's pressure being that, you know, people are like, oh, what's your opinion? I mean, every time, because sometimes as like a black person, people are like, oh, what's the black issue? I'm like, I can't tell you. It's like my
Can't
issue.
have
Let's
everything.
speak for
Yeah.
all of them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's a great question. I feel of it more of it as it's a privilege for me. I feel honored that people trust me to come to me and say, well, what do you think about this? And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've gained the trust of the folks who voted for me and who have said, okay, well, I want to elect maybe, and so I'm going to trust what she has to say about these other candidates and propositions and measures, and that really means a lot to me, and so that makes me feel like I extra have to do my homework to make sure that I'm putting out the correct information. I mean, there's even one measure on the ballot this election that I sort of had to really do my own research, and I'm still getting mixed opinions about. It's Measure G, which is an LA County measure. And basically what it would do is, the big thing it would do is they would expand the LA County Board of Supervisors from 5 to 9. That's the big thing that it does, and I think that is a great thing. I think the more representatives, the better.
Yeah.
When you start to concentrate the power within the hands of very few, that's where your borderline,
It's been a conversation about city council in LA for a while now, about expanding.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And even for me as a member of the LA Neighborhood Council system, I've always said that I would be in support of abolishing the neighborhood council system if it meant that we had more city council representatives, because we only have 15 city council members for a city of about 4 million.
Yeah.
And then you look at cities like Chicago and New York, and both of those cities have around 50 representatives. So the idea is that you want to have a smaller constituency per representative so that each representative can really pay attention to their constituency. And when we talk about LA County, there's 10 million people in the county with only 5 representatives. That means that each rep has about 2 million constituents. Wow. I'm not reading 2 million emails a year, are you?
No.
Do you know them? No. But in DeClure, we all fam. What? In DeClure, we all fam. In the club, we are all family. Are you racist?
Donald Trump was photographed working a fry cooker at a McDonald's. Turns out the McDonald's was closed to the public and every car and customer that came through was staged. Still, they served food to those in attendance, but in typical Trump format, he stiffed the business and did not pay for the food they served. Obviously, no one was happy about this, except the Hamburglar, who was then downgraded to the second most wanted felon in the world of McDonald's. Georgia reported a record number of early voters. More than 250,000 voters cast ballots on the first day, nearly double from the 2020 turnout. Meanwhile, scared Republicans are reposting how well Trump is doing in Gotham City.
Let's not do any more questions. Let's just listen to music. Let's make it into a music.
Last week, voters in Oaks, Pennsylvania hoped to see Trump speak at a town hall, only to find themselves watching him take his own song requests and sway to the music for 40 minutes after 2 of his supporters had medical issues. Quote, who the hell wants to hear questions, right? It's a town hall, Mr. Trump. That's the only reason people are there. Though I did find it interesting that both Trump and I have YMCA and It's Raining Men on our playlists.
So play YMCA. Go ahead. Let's go. Nice and loud.
Here we go, everybody.
This past week, Donald Trump once again tried to pay off Stormy Daniels to sign an NDA on all of the things that he didn't do with her. On stage, he threatened to use military force against our own citizens, and he said that he would defund public schools if they didn't obey him. Once again, exposing his corrupt nature. How is this man still getting votes?
I want to know too.
It feels like cult-like behavior at
Yes.
this point, which I know is kind of a strong word, but it does shock me how fervent people are for him. Like, and it feels like there's nothing you can say to convince people otherwise.
There's nothing he can say.
Yeah.
to convince them
Exactly.
otherwise. Like, he literally can say, I'm not going to take care of you. In fact, I'm going to leave you stranded. And people are like, you know what?
I mean, didn't
Trump
he,
is my guy. Yes.
he even
He's
said
done it
I could
twice.
shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and I would still get the votes.
Yep.
Insane that he can even say that kind of thing. And everyone's just like, yeah, that's okay.
I don't even know if he really wants to be a politician because based on those videos, it looks like he wants to be a drag queen. Like,
fair.
wants to take requests, dance in front of people, maybe for a few dollars.
But I think there's something to the idea of like, I don't know if he wants to be president. I think he just wants to feel powerful. Like I think that's the case with a lot of people like him, is that they're like, because being president is ultimately a position of service, right?
Yeah.
You're representing the people. And it doesn't seem like he has any interest in that, but he does want to feel powerful and he wants people to look at him like he is powerful.
He wants other people to serve him so that he feels like some sort of king, some sort of like dictator. And it's like, honestly, at this point, it's been, I don't even know how many years, 8 years since like he's introduced into like the political spectrum. And if you are still voting for Trump at this point,
Yeah.
what are you doing? There's clear mental decline. There's just very blatant racism, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia. And he honestly has no idea what he's doing. Everyone wants to say he's going to be better on the economy, but like, look what happened in the pandemic. You know, people like to think, oh, the economy was better with Trump. But actually, with like macroeconomics, you don't feel the economic policies until the next term.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what we're feeling right now.
Yeah.
And Biden and other Democrats actually are better at the economy because they've helped us recover our economy, and then we feel it in that next term. So yeah, he's actually not smart.
And I feel like a lot of the discussion around that, you know, people have been talking about, you know, prices are higher for everything, inflation. For me, a lot of it is just corporate greed.
Yeah. It's not even entirely up to the people in power
Exactly.
politically. It's also the people in power on a corporate level.
Because even, you know, and there's a lot of talk about the national debt. And the national debt is something that really scares people because they think that the average person is going to have to pay that off. When in reality, the way that our economy works, the United States of America operates on what's known as a fiat currency system. And what that means is that we don't owe anybody. We don't have to have a certain amount of gold to pay off our debt. So we used to be on the gold standard, which means you used to have had to have a certain amount of gold in order to be able to run dollars, to be able to pay off that debt. But as a fiat nation, what the US can do is it actually has the power to, you know, create as much money as it wants. And now I know that sounds really testy. You know, there's this that phrase, money doesn't grow on trees. But actually in this case, it does. Well, technically it does because it's paper.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, the real value of the American economy is not the dollars that we're paying in taxes, but it's actually the labor and the resources that come out of this nation. And so the reason we actually have taxes is to incentivize people to work, because that's where the real value of the economy comes from. People need an incentive to work, and the incentive is they have to pay their taxes. But the thing about it is, when you pay your taxes every year, that's not paying off the national debt. That's not paying off any sort of debt. That is just ensuring that the American people are working. And it's funny to me that there is never a question about how we're going to come up with the money for war or billions of dollars of bombs for Israel or any other nation, but there's never enough money for healthcare, housing, education, etc. Nothing left for the average American.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that we are the wealthiest country in the world, and yet we don't have like things like universal health care, which like is, it's weird to me that that's not more of a point in this election as it has been in past elections. Like even Kamala has sort of moved her position on Medicare for all.
Yeah. She did say she wanted Medicare for all before.
Yes, she did.
And
And she's moved that position.
And it makes me wonder, like, what has changed since then? Because people are continuing to get sick. People are continuing to not have health care. People are continuing to go into
and we're just off the pandemic.
COVID is still ongoing, really. It hasn't really slowed down.
So it's really disappointing to me to see the values of the Democratic Party move closer to the center, which ultimately is moving closer to the right.
It's concerning.
Neither of the two major parties are calling for universal health care.
Yeah.
When this, they call it a pipe dream. Nancy Pelosi herself has called things like universal health care, environmental justice, etc., pipe dreams. The only reason these ideas are considered radical here in the United States is because they're not actually in practice here. These are not radical ideas in the rest of the Western world.
I think it's also clearly, hospitals, prescription drugs, it's a huge industry.
The industry.
Yeah. So, and we know that we live in a very capitalist environment here in the US. Everything is about business and money.
Corporate America.
Okay, exactly. So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And speaking of money, Can we talk about Elon Musk and how he is, trying to
Brian.
buy the vote? How he's trying to buy the vote?
The audacity, especially because so many people on the right were saying that the last election was stolen, that the results are,
Right.
not real. And also a lot of folks talking about foreign interference. Well, what about actual financial interference here in the United States? That is tampering with an election to
Right.
say, I will pay you, I'm going to give out $1 million a day. If you sign this petition and you register to vote in a swing state.
Right.
Clearly, the mere fact that he's doing it just in swing states says that he is trying to sway the election.
And the gut
Absolutely.
reaction is like, how can that possibly be legal? But for people with that amount of money, it doesn't kind of
doesn't matter.
matter what's legal because they
Yeah,
can
'cause they can just
pay
pay it off.
to get away with it.
And I truly believe that he bought Twitter so that he could steal this election. He wanted to do like a Facebook revamp with Twitter and like kind of take lead of the conversation of what's going on in politics in the US. Like, girl,
You can see that with the changes he's making because Twitter is the social media that
Yeah.
I use the most, and you can see it in the changes he's making.
Oh, absolutely.
Like how now accounts can see the accounts that they've blocked or that have blocked them.
No protections.
Yeah, and I think it's partially because he's probably one of the most blocked people on that website, and he still wants people to see his.
I did
tweets.
block him.
X.
I did
Yeah.
block him.
Oh.
I don't care.
The
what
one
he
time
calls
we
it.
will dead name someone.
Yeah, we're dead naming Twitter, Amy.
Oh my
No,
gosh.
but him owning X or Twitter and putting himself on everyone's feed too, that's just something nasty.
Totally. I mean, everybody that's in my For You feed, none of them are for me.
Oh, yeah.
None of them are for me.
And I think that's by design.
And
Yeah.
even just the idea that you have to, to pay for verification, he sort of latched onto this
That's
idea of
crazy.
everybody wanting to feel special.
Yeah.
And so, if you remember just a few years ago, if you had a blue check mark
Yep.
on
Yeah.
Twitter or even Instagram,
Instagram.
it's like, oh, who is this person?
Right.
It just means that you're a verified human being so that other people aren't impersonating you.
Yeah.
Most of these people don't have to worry about being impersonated. I myself used to be verified on Twitter when I was running, I think back in 2020 and 2022. I got verified just because of the fact that I was a verified candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives.
yeah. Right.
And then once Musk took over Twitter, I was threatened with, you either have to pay this monthly fee or you're losing your verification. So the idea that I was verified and then unverified because I didn't want to pay a monthly fee.
And now it really doesn't mean anything anymore. Like it
Right.
used to mean like this person is someone of note. This person is maybe a journalist, a politician, someone in the medical field, someone whose opinion you might be able to trust. And now it's this person has, what is it,
They bought
$5
it.
a month
They
to
just paid for
spend?
it,
Yeah. It's kind of
thanks.
eroding our ability to like trust sources.
Oh,
also.
absolutely.
It's giving like grinder verified.
Yeah.
If you pay the premium, then you're a verified
And
profile.
not to mention, there's just so much. One of the things I loved about old Twitter was that it just felt like a very safe, supportive space. And now there are so many hideous things being said. It's so remarkable to me that the words that you can say, which I can't even repeat, but sis.
But you can't say
You
sis.
can't say sis.
Yep.
Because that is what's
ridiculous.
The
offensive.
woke
Right.
mind virus. Just that name itself just shows how like unintellectual he is.
And
Yeah.
how insane.
Hi, Politicuties. This week at Last Week Was a Drag, we are joined by the candidate for California State Assembly, District 54, John Yee. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course, thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me here.
thank
So
you,
excited
thank
to be
you.
here with you, Hentai.
Just for context, John here booked me for a gig a few months ago.
That's right.
And that was before I knew anything about this show. And I felt like meeting you and working with you was like necessary for me to get here today. And I feel like the stars were aligned. I'm just so
Thank
happy
you.
that you're here.
Yeah, you performed at a show for us. It was a party. People came. It was in Chinatown. A lot of fun. So thank you
Yeah,
for being there.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
course.
But yeah, let's get into these questions. I have a few spicy ones.
All right.
Okay, so this is your first time running, right?
Yep, it is my first time running.
Okay, why did you decide to run for office this year?
You know, I ran for office because of my grandfather. My grandfather passed away, but I lived with him probably around the last 5 years of his life. And really, everything you're seeing that's going on in California manifested in his life. The lack of affordable housing. He literally would ping pong from one uncle's home to another uncle's home in Koreatown because we could not find him affordable senior housing specifically.
Yeah.
It's so expensive. You go to any McDonald's in K-Town, 8, 9 in the morning, it is full of Korean and Latino seniors because we have no green public spaces to hang out. Our streets are too dangerous. Our parks are disinvested. And actually on one of these days when he was meeting up with his friends, one of his friends was hit by a car and killed.
Wow.
Just blocks away. And it took, actually my grandfather, it took him forever to actually share that story with us because it's that traumatic.
Yeah.
But these are the conditions in Koreatown for our seniors. And something we often say is if you serve our seniors, you really serve everyone. It's kind of like it lifts all boats. And so that was the big reason why I decided to run. Because if not me, who's going to fight for people like my grandfather?
That is honestly so amazing. Yeah, I noticed that a lot with like seniors, even back in Hawaii. I mean, you know, in Asian culture, we really take care of our elders and people who took care of us our entire lives. So that's honestly, I didn't know that. That's really inspiring. Thank you.
I mean, look, I'm a second generation kid of an immigrant. And so, I mean, you as well.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes I think second gen kid of immigrants, we have this context where we look at our community around us and we see like this is what was built by our parents, the generations before us. And so what is my responsibility for a place like Koreatown for the generation afterwards?
Yeah.
And so that's the sort of frame in which I see myself as a candidate.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Okay, I want you to get shady, like
let's
truly. Why should your constituents vote for you and not the other candidate?
Yeah, I mean, it's not shady at all. I mean, I think there's a very clear distinction of candidates in this race. First and foremost, we are running a completely clean money campaign. We don't take any oil gas money, no corporate PAC money. And our opponent, he takes all of that. And I think this is something that you find even amongst a lot of traditional Democrats here in California. Something we often say is in a state where everyone has a D after their name, then what is the actual difference? Especially if the conditions are the way they are, high rent, awful air, poor health outcomes for a lot of our children. And so one thing about this campaign is we want to be able to show a Democrat who is not sort of taking this kind of money and taking those kind of interests, oftentimes that go completely against our communities. So I'll give you an example. My opponent takes Airbnb money. And we are a district of 80% renters, and we know that short-term rentals is a big motivator for a lot of displacement. He takes money from the Real Estate Association, oil, gas money. And so all this way, in many ways, we know we need to have more representation in this district that feels that urgency. And if you feel that urgency, you would not be taking that kind of money. So.
And I can tell that you're really passionate because we were just talking about how you are canvassing. You're the candidate. And you're canvassing. You're going door by door. So that really just shows like the effort and the love that you have for the constituents and the people, and that like you're really willing to fight for us.
I mean, if you want to know the community, you got to be in the community.
Exactly.
And before I was a candidate, I was actually a pedestrian advocate.
What does that mean?
Exactly, but I love that's your reaction in Los Angeles. If there's any city in the country where we need more pedestrian advocates, it would be Los Angeles. But when I tell people that was my former job, they're like, oh, that even exists? But in that space, I think a lot of the work that we did was about accessibility, about sidewalk issues. And so I think this is another area in our community that needs far, far more of that.
Okay, speaking of the issues, you are elected into office, day one. What are you going to do? What is that one issue that you're going to champion that you want to get done in your first term?
So this is the first bill I will put on the table.
Okay.
And I will tell you this, it is not going to pass because I know how controversial it is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it every single year. We need to make LA Metro an elected body. For me, it is absolutely wild that in the city of Los Angeles, the second largest city, the people who make all the budget decisions, policy decisions about buses and trains do not ride our buses and trains. And for me, that is wild. And you see the results just by taking the subway, taking the bus. We are treated as crowds to be managed, not clients or customers to be served. So I think one way of changing that is really bringing actually bus riders into the decision-making table.
I love that idea because we need more bus riders. Like, I feel like there's not enough buses coming around. I also take public transportation. I've been in LA for 9 years and have not driven once.
Wow, are you serious?
No, I'm Asian, I can't drive.
Oh,
I shouldn't be on the road. And I'm a woman. But no, seriously, I think that's a great idea. I love that. I thought you were going to say you're going to make the buses free.
That's another thing, fare-free transit. A lot of advocates in Los Angeles are actually working on fare-free transit. If you look at the budget of LA Metro, 3% of the budget is funded by fare collection. And then 75% of that money that's actually collected is then shoveled back into the fare collection program. So getting free transit is not a financial question, it's a political question. And that's something we need more elected to our transit riders to push that conversation.
All right, John, thank you so much for being here. If you live in the District 54, that's going to be Koreatown, Downtown, and Boyle Heights. Please consider voting for John Yee over here. He's an amazing candidate. Last week, David Duke, the leader of the KKK, endorsed presidential candidate Jill Stein, which she publicly rejected and shockingly trashed Donald Trump. Is anyone else confused by that? And what are your thoughts on voting third party?
For me, it's very interesting. Jill Stein, as you mentioned, already rejected that endorsement. If you are a candidate, you can't control who actually supports you or who says they support you. I think it was really just a ploy to mess up, just the dynamics of the election.
Literally, you took the words out of my mouth. I truly believe it was sabotage. Like, it was meant to be a headline for people to click. Not even necessarily click. You see the headline and you just make an assumption. Then, like, you don't even go ahead and check to see, like, that she rejected it. You're just like, whoa, not voting for her. Like, that's it. And that's all you need. You just need a little bit of something to, like, create a whole narrative.
Why do you
that's
think he
untrue.
endorsed her?
There's a part of me that almost wonders if it is a ploy to make people who are on the far left look bad, because a lot of farther left people have been talking about voting third party in this election.
Yeah.
I don't know how popular Jill Stein specifically is among leftists. I've heard actually a lot of critiques of her from the left as well, that she kind of only shows up every 4 years and isn't really doing the work in her communities outside of elections. But I wonder if that was part of it. I'm not really sure. Duke has been outspokenly in favor of Trump in the past, has he not?
He has, yeah. I think in his in Trump's first election, he was. So that's what it makes me wonder. You would think that, I don't know how him supporting the Green Party would ultimately help. I don't know how that would ultimately help
I don't know what the thinking is
But
there. And also, how much reason can you really expect from a person like David?
Oh,
to be
of
fair.
course. And for me, what doesn't make sense to me at all is it's this idea that, I don't know, third parties are getting a lot of trash talking this year. They got a lot of trash talking back in 2016, 2020 as well. Here's the thing. In my opinion, the more parties, the better. The more options, the better. That's actually democracy.
Yeah.
I will say I have been personally somewhat disappointed by the Democratic Party for not just being outspoken about third parties, but actually suing the Green Party to keep them off of the ballot in several different states. And to me, that's just, it's malarkey.
It feels like
It's
voter
malarkey.
suppression in a way.
Exactly, because the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party that is fighting for democracy. This election, as it said, is the election for democracy. Democracy means more choices, more options, not you either have this or that. The fewer the options, the less democratic. The more options, the more democratic. And I get that the Democratic Party is upset about the Green Party or any sort of third party candidates, because we essentially break down our political system into left or right, blue or red, and that's two options. But in reality, there are so many more opinions and ideas and political ideologies that you can't really break it down into something that's so black and white. And so when it comes down to it, most people who are voting third party, they actually could be swayed to vote Democratic, part of the Democratic Party, if the Democratic Party was actually saying that they want to fight for the things that most people want. You know, Jill Stein, or I should more specifically say the Green Party, is the only party on the ballot this year that is fighting for universal health care, that wants to see an arms embargo and an end to the genocide in Palestine, that wants to see a housing for all guarantee, that wants to see a decrease in our police and military state.
Yeah.
And I think those ideas actually fit with the ideas of the general American public.
I want to know, why do you think they're, like the Green Party, for instance, and these other parties, why their candidates aren't included in the presidential debate? Because I think Jill Stein would have been a perfect person to be in the room with Kamala and Trump, especially because of their dynamic. I think having someone like Jill Stein also on the dais to talk about the issues would have definitely changed the complete dynamic. Why do you think?
Well, you know, I'll tell you from firsthand experience why I think that is. Because the Democratic Party loves to serve the establishment. And the same thing goes with the Republican Party. They love to serve the establishment candidates, the candidates that are in power and are guaranteed to keep power for those political parties. I myself, being a Democrat who ran as a Democrat, challenging a very powerful Democrat in
Yeah.
office, I was treated the same way that these third-party candidates are treated. And it's because you are not to get in the way of who is to be in power. And so there is so much power and so much money in these two big political parties. that
Money,
it
I think, is the
it's
big
so
thing.
and money, yeah, it's so difficult for third parties to be able to rise up to the top because of the fact that they don't have the sort of money resources
Sounds like
that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party do. And again, like I said, I am a Democrat, but when it comes down to it, when I look at what all of the parties stand for, I actually more so stand for the Green Party. I'm voting Democratic because I don't want to see a Republican come into office. That's the trade-off. That's
And
the
that
harm
just
reduction
feels like a
votes.
lack of choice.
And we want to be able to vote again in the future.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That was a lot. Can we have some fun, please? Here are some of our favorite videos of the past week.
Take the remote unit and you're set for hours of pure pleasure.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
I love
her.
I needed that. I did like a moment for her to like heckle back the hecklers.
Yeah.
I personally live for it. Trump does it all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like she has like nastier things to say, but she just doesn't say it because, she's a politician.
Yeah.
But I live for her sassier moments. It's kind of giving like Obama-esque, like going off the cuff. And I mean, if Republicans can say whatever the hell they want to, like, why can't we?
Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta say, I disagree in a way. I personally think that. What are we always talking about? First Amendment rights, freedom to say what you think, and freedom to dissent. And so I do think that those folks should be able to dissent. I also do think that there is a power imbalance between somebody who's the vice president of the United States running for president and some people coming in to voice their objections. And I draw a lot of parallels to what I saw at the Democratic National Convention, where they would not allow Palestinian speakers to come up and speak. And it's basically, if you don't agree with what we're saying, get the bleep outs. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think there's a power imbalance there. And I think that, I don't know, personally, I think it's kind of a mistake. I would not want to isolate anybody who is a potential voter. I think that was a big mistake that Hillary Clinton made back in 2016 when she called Trump voters deplorables. And they're still using that term.
They're identifying with
But
it
they
now.
are.
That may be true.
This week, and he said what?
Good. These lights are so bright in my eyes that I can't see too many people out there. But I can only see the black ones. I can't see any white ones, you see? That's how far I've come.
Wow.
So yeah, now we have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least he sees us.
Yeah.
I
He's color.
think he's been trying really, really hard to pander to voters of color this election more so than any other.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think he really wants people of color to be on his side. It's really disturbing because he has such a strong history of being incredibly exceptionally racist. And I do think that moment, even though I see it as pandering, it was still racist. It was racist pandering.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I was offended.
Yeah.
I'm offended for you.
Yeah.
No, totally. It feels like, it gives me the ick.
It's icky.
It gives me
It's
the
gross.
ick. Like, why do we even have to? So this next video is pretty powerful, showing that we actually can change.
Ain't much to think about it.
Well, who are you going to vote for?
The right person.
Well, who do you think the right
It
person
won't
is?
be Donald Trump.
Okay, tell me why.
Last time you saw him talking, did you watch his lips? Were they moving? He's lying.
All right, well, so Mr. Wilson here was telling us that January 6th was a big disqualifier for him.
It should have been.
How do you feel about that?
I feel about it like he's anti-American. He's trying to overthrow our government.
So are you thinking about voting for Harris?
Yeah, have to or not vote. He's the only choice other than Trump.
I'd love to speak to this because actually I have in my family a number of lifelong Republicans who, when Trump first announced that he was running and started spewing all of the hateful stuff that he spewed, re-registered as Democrats. My own parents were lifelong Republicans, and when Trump came on the scene, they were like, we're done with this.
Yeah.
And I can attest, who did they vote for Congress?
Maybe a girl.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's unfortunate though that even like if you are you know, you were a lifelong Republican and now you're like, no, I have to change my, you know, distinction. I don't think you should have to. If you still want to vote Democrat, be a Republican who votes Democrat. Great. But I mean, to have to go ahead and or to feel the need to change to a different party, I just feel like
I just feel like
go ahead.
I just feel like they had such like this gut reaction to all of this hate that Donald Trump was spewing, and they're just like, I cannot associate myself with them if the Republicans who are in power, you know, are endorsing him and allowing him to like run this country to the ground.
That's exactly what it was for the
embarrass
people
us.
I know. They were like, he's being enabled by the Republican Party.
Exactly.
They're allowing him to do this. And they largely are. Like, even people who have criticized him in the past, like J.D. Vance, as I said last week, are on board because it means power and money.
They think they can control him, but they can't.
Yeah.
He's such a loose cannon.
Yeah, there's no control.
no, they have to know at this point that there's no controlling it.
Yeah.
Well, and even with that, like, there's this, you know, this idea that if you're a Republican and you're a staunch Republican, you still want the Republican candidate to win. And I think a lot of them realize
They're out.
how off the charts he actually
When that
is.
list of political figures and, you know, representatives came out saying, like, those who are anti-Trump, I feel like that was very telling. 'Cause
Yeah, all the
to
people that
come
worked for
together
him,
as a
too.
party and say, no, I think that's a big deal.
All right, so I can relate to this next video.
So I just voted for Harris, the first black female president. I feel like my heart is beating fast because I saw so many people there, and it just felt like hope. It felt like hope, and it reminded me of like what it felt like when I saw like the Washington Monument in DC and like saw the White House for the first time. So go vote. It's an adrenaline rush. Be a part of history. It feels really special, and I just could think about this all day. Go vote.
Wait, I'm kind of emotional from that.
I got goosebumps.
I know, me too. I feel like we love getting shitty. We want to talk bad about Trump. We want to critique the Democrats. But at the end of the day, this election is so important. And we just cannot let Trump win another election. And it feels so close. I look at the polls, and I'm trying not to look at the polls, but I'm a numbers person. So I have to look. And, you know, just seeing that really inspired me because people are going out to vote early. We really do not want this person. And I do think that if he wins, if he does win, it's just about to go down. It's about to go down.
Yeah.
Truly.
I wish I was feeling that way. I really do. I want to have that moment. I'm not this election, unfortunately. There are still things that I want from Harris. And I understand people saying, like, wait and see. But I think she's in a job interview right now. And she has an obligation to the people she's running to serve to listen to them. So I wish I could relate to that video. I wish I was feeling that. But I don't know if I am.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, obviously, I was happy that it was Harris versus, you know, instead of Biden for a number of reasons. But I also am not excited about the idea of it being the same exact thing. I want to see an end to the genocide, and I want to see this happen. I want to see that guarantee now.
Yeah.
We always hear about, move the candidate in your direction once they're elected. But when have we ever actually seen that happen? Now is the time to be critiquing. I do think that, yes, I would much prefer Kamala Harris over Donald Trump, 1,000%. But it's hard to be excited when American policy is supporting what's happening in Palestine right now.
Okay, well, this final video hits deep.
If I were to ask Vice President Harris a question, I think I would ask her, how soon do you think we can get the Equality Act passed?
How about Donald Trump?
I would ask him, do you see me as a human?
Yeah.
It's hard to see that, and it's hard to see any, you know, queer person, let alone a queer youth, you know, express that sort of sentiment.
About the president, about someone who could potentially lead our country. Yeah. I don't think that he would see them as a human, to be honest.
Yeah, there has been, I think, this cycle more than any other, so much anti-trans rhetoric specifically coming from like the highest levels of people running. So I just want to remind everyone, this election isn't just about politics, it's about our humanity. How are you talking to the people in your life to help them understand that? Sisters?
You know, I think just conversations like these, having a candid, not being afraid to have a candid conversation with your friends, with your neighbors, your family, and you might not agree on everything, but I think it brings you to this point where you start to realize we're all concerned about all of our collective futures.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's something to be hopeful about. So even though I'm not super excited about the candidates this time, I still have hope for the future because I know there are so many people like that are relying on our elected officials to take us to a better place.
Right. People like you and people like us who could like lead us to a better future. I want to truly believe that people are fundamentally good, and you know, I come from a more apolitical family, so I didn't grow up like being a Democrat or Republican. Even when I was like interning in the House of Representatives, I was like a fellow on the Biden campaign. My mom thought I was like an anarchist trying to take over the country. And yes, yes, I do want to take over the country with my tentacles. But talking to them is really interesting because they don't see it as like a football game, like team Democrat, team Republican. They just want to understand like, these are issues and what is this person going to do? And when I started learning more about politics, started getting more into it and like talking with my family, I've like helped them erase so much like generational trauma and being able to talk about things. It's so special, especially with my mom and my sisters who, you know, a lot of them don't even have like a high school diploma. I was the very first person to get a high school diploma in my family. So being able to teach my family and not like, I feel like a lot of the times Democrats or like liberal elites will be like, they're just stupid. Like they don't get it. Like I don't even want to bother. But how are we gonna have those conversations if you don't, you know? And I definitely, like my family lives in Iowa. They're a swing state kinda. And I'm like, girl, you vote for them. Vote for them.
Yeah.
And you know, they're gonna do the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure the audience is tired of hearing us talk. So let's just play music and dance awkwardly on stage.
Hey, Politicuties, thank you so much for joining us this week. We love seeing your comments coming in all week.
Ugh, last week was such a drag. Now, where's the liquor? I want to get down.
Cause I've been hiding and it's hurting me just to try to keep the peace. Because I know you care and so it won't be fair if you don't know just who